up, Mr. Nate? Doing good. Doing good. Yeah, you're fine. I don't think anybody's here, but you can sit wherever you want. Yeah. Who usually sits here?
I've never sat on this.
I don't know. Betsy, maybe? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Rudy Giuliani's been suspended from practicing law. Did you see that?
New York went after him.
Holy cow.
I was talking to the sheriff in Delaware County today. He's like, how do you guys have a pay matrix? Because they're fighting the same thing up there.
Mm-hmm.
They're losing
And they're already higher than you guys.
a little bit, but not.
Is it really not much?
It's not much.
Okay.
I almost think it's the same. Like they're like, but they're losing to Yorktown.
Yeah.
Muncie.
I was gonna say their city's jumping up.
Yeah. Yeah, their city starts at 52.
Yeah, because there's a retired officer at our church. He was talking to me about having my son apply up there. He said they need people so bad.
Yeah, and they
But-
still can't get people 52.
Mm-hmm.
That's,
He wants to be home, so he's trying to stay around here. So he's still in the city process. My son is. He's in the city process. Yeah. So, you guys.
they put the 2 years in on our stuff, which
Yeah. 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 It's I mean, it's good and bad, right? I mean, it's good if you're in if you can compete. But when you can't compete,
you're really cutting your throat.
yeah, exactly. So, but he did. I think I told you that he did really good in the tests and everything for the city.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do that if necessary. Okay, so we'll call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum of voting members, so we'll get started. First on the agenda is the meeting minutes. Everyone might have had a chance to look through them. Any additions or corrections or any action? Okay, so we're going to add Melissa to the attendance roster. Any other changes or? If not, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
A motion by Nate. Do I second?
Second.
Second by Clay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay, minutes approved. Okay, so we'll move on to our first item on the agenda, which is Butch Baker and the 911.
I think we should talk about it in the microphone just in case.
You ready?
Floor's all yours, Butch.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm here today, and I'll start off with the straightforward, blunt thing. I'm here in an attempt, and I'll explain why, to increase my part-time people's pay without costing the county 1 red cent. So the reasoning behind it is they're making $12.25 an hour. I went through a couple hiring processes. I hired some back in February, hired 4. I got 2 of the 4 left. I started another process and didn't get a lot of good response at this point in time. And I understand why. Some of the part of it is that you can go deliver pizzas for $20 an hour, or $20 a delivery, and you can go work most places today for $15 an hour, and we're only offering $12.25. And the difference is there's 12 weeks of training, certifications that they have to have. They get during that 12 weeks, and they're in there doing a job that got everybody's lives on the line, not theirs, but everybody else, all the law enforcement, fire, EMS, and the public. So it's a lot of responsibility. It takes a person that can multitask, it takes somebody that can work electronics. There's no actual phone, there's no button here with a microphone, looks like this. It's all computerized. So it's a little bit technical. I had probably a 24, 25-year veteran of law enforcement who was one of those original 4. And he went through the training, did the 12 weeks. He made it through it. He got all these certifications. But then he didn't feel comfortable dispatching. He liked dispatching, but he felt that he was a hindrance, not a help, because he wasn't fast enough. I tried to talk him into staying just another month, and the more you do it, the better, faster you get. He said he couldn't do it. He said, too much technology. So there's that in play when we're trying to find somebody to work. It's sort of not to degrade anybody that's flipping hamburgers. It's not the same. So my request is to be able to at least bump them up to $15. Now, I told you in the beginning that no cost to the county. I have 911 money that comes in every month. It's $39,244. Pretty much spend that every month on payroll and things that we have to do in 911. Most of it's payroll, medical insurance, SSI, all those things that go along with an employment. The county's not out any money on that at all for all my part-time people. It's all covered by 911 funds. For the last several years, at the end of each year, towards the end of each year, the state will have a surplus of money, and they deb that out to all the PSAPs, dispatch centers throughout the state of Indiana. Last year was $80-some thousand. The year before that, I think maybe it was $100,000. All this is before me. But they've been doing this regularly for years in anticipation. Right now, I have roughly $200,000 in this pot over here that I can draw from to use for certain things. What I can do is use it for payroll, and but they also send us this little 10-page little form here. This is the state eligibility and non-eligibility things that you can do with that money. You can spend it on this, but you can't spend it on that. You can spend it here, but you can't spend it there. We try to go by that guidelines because at the end of the year, if you don't, State Board of Accounts dings you and writes you up, and then also turns around and makes you pay it back. So in following these guidelines, there's a lot of things that I really would like to have and would like to do, but I can't spend the money on it. But I can spend the money on this to help get me dispatchers and retain the ones I got. I got 11 part-time dispatchers. Well, take it back. I got 9 part-time dispatchers. I got 11 slots. I got 9 part-time dispatchers. All of them have full-time jobs. Most of them are working here for the $12.25 an hour, and they've been with us for some time, a year or 2, 3 years, and they want and need extra money to provide for their families and their home. But some of them have been talking about they could go elsewhere and make more money working at Walmart and have somewhat the same flexibility. They tell me what hours they can work. They all work daytime jobs. They give me what days they're available in the afternoons and the evenings, and then I plug them in where I need them. So the last few months, up until this month, July coming up, when I did the schedule, I've managed to keep my forced overtime for my full-time people down to about maybe 3 a month for the whole month. This next month in July, I got 8. And I worked on the schedule for 2 days, and that's the best I could do with it, with my lack of part-time people, my part-time people's availability. So my request is part of that request will go to the council, is to take $18,000 out of that pot of money, out of that $200,000, and put it into a line item within my budget. It's called administrative line item, which it was given to me by Debbie Walker. Said I could use that for this if everybody approves it. That money then at $18,000, if an employee worked 10 hours part-time, and this is, I'm just dealing with part-time people, it has nothing to do with full-time people. If an part-time employee worked 10 hours this week, they'd get paid $12.25 from this line item, and then the other line item, they'd get paid $2.75, which would total $15 an hour. Again, that wouldn't cost the county a penny. Any increase in Social Security or those other benefits that attach to it, depending on how much money they make, I've factored that in so that I actually only need $15,000 to match that, but the extra money is to cover those costs too. So, again, county doesn't pay any of that anyway. It all comes out of 911 money. So that's my request, and that's my reasoning why. If that makes sense.
Okay, I have a couple questions, but just to make sure, you went over a lot of information. So you currently have 11 spots and 2 openings?
Yes.
Is that pretty standard, or is that up, down, sideways, or?
Yeah, I'd say it's, and I can't really 100% tell you this because I haven't ran dispatch for several years. I've been sort of associated with it off and on, do Scott Pinkerton and stuff, and I know every once in a while him and Brenneman would do a recruiting job, and they'd get their people and they'd be there. So I mean, there's fluctuations. People quit, retire. I just had a full-time guy quit last month, 17 years, and he quit. Can't blame him. He got a job offered at $60,000, and he works from home. So, I can't blame him for doing that at all, but I sure would have liked to kept him because he was one of my better dispatchers. So, but I don't expect us to ever be able to pay that kind of money to even our full-time people, but at the same time, as far as, I don't think it's had this hard of a trouble trying to keep people at this time. But there wasn't the pandemic, and there wasn't the free money being given away by the government either, so that probably is playing into it too.
So, to clarify something else a little further, the $18,000 that you're going to set aside in this admin line item will not change the salary ordinance for your employees. This is just in addition to, so it would not affect the salary ordinance of those employees?
Right, it would not affect that. In fact, as my plans would be, providing this passes here and passes council, my plans would be that there would be 2 things happen. One, all my existing part-time people would be given notice that their salary is still $12.25 an hour, but that until further notice, however far down the line, there would be an additional $2.75 incentive pay per hour until it runs out. Anybody that I would hire from this point forward, their salary would be $12.25 with that same notice, that there would be an additional incentive pay until further notice of $2.75. And way everybody would know up front, I'm hiring on here at $12.25, but I'm probably going to make $15 for a while. And that, to me, that while, even if the state reduces or backs off, I got 10 years to be able to pay them that. Hopefully in 10 years from now, their pay will be up a little bit more. Their pay's set, and if you go back and look at Wagner, Irwin, Sheeling, I think I'm under what they recommend at $15 an hour. And again, that money doesn't come from the county coffers. It comes from 911 money. But I also know that I can't budget them that because budgetarily, I only get $39,244 a month. And when you total all that up, and make my payments, pay my salaries and all my benefits for everybody, and that pretty much eats that up. So I can't budget more than what the state's officially giving us every year or every month. So I know that. So I know we can't do that. So that's why I've come up with this concept or idea or or whatever you want to call it, to maybe try to offset that.
So, Ann, does this cause any potential HR issues because of a salary ordinance with an incentive?
And I have, before I started any of this, I sat down with Kay, who actually does the payroll, and we discussed that, what kind of problems that was going to cause her, if any, and also with Debbie Walker. And again, like I said, Debbie Walker's the one that looked up and says, well, here's a line item that you don't ever use. It's called administrative. She says you could transfer that money into administrative, and then we could draw it out of there to make up the difference and make the payment. So Kay was the same way. Kay says, no, once we get the form set up, she says, it'll be just like a normal process. And the work will be on my end more so than it will be on their end. And I'm okay with that.
The way I look at this is these are traditionally tough jobs to fill, and they are difficult jobs. You just can't put anybody in there and have them get all these skills and stay in there. They're very important jobs. They have a lot of responsibility. The way you described it, I think I'm certainly for doing that. And it's hard to predict. This country is changing so fast right now. 6 months from now, things may look a whole lot different. A year from now, who knows what's going to happen. So certainly, since this is just a temporary fix, really, I certainly recommend that we try this and see how it goes. We can always reevaluate it in the future.
No. Right. No, that money that comes in goes into that pot, and that's why there's $200,000 in there today that's unearmarked for anything, and that's there now. And last year, like I said, there was $85,000 come in. Now, occasionally there's a project or something that comes up, but that's where I, might present a request to take out X number of dollars for this project, wherever this project might be, to enhance 911. But I'm not going to do that if it's going to cut into that money for them, and hopefully they're not going to allow me to do that if it's going to cut into that money from them. So, I mean, I guess that's where it is. That's a management thing. I know that if this is approved, that I'm going to have $18,000 every year coming out of there, going into this line item over here to make that pay. Because I don't want to be the one to come up one day and say, hey, all you guys and gals, you're no longer $15 an hour, you're down to $12.25 like you was to start with. I don't want to have to do that. But, it may come to that some point in time, but it may not. Like I said, there's 10 years there laying there, but I anticipate that this year's no different than last year. Last year they got $85,000 towards the end of the year. I anticipate the same thing this time this year. That'll just be laying there, adding on to the totals. So. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's why I said everybody's going to get, if this flies, everybody's going to get notice that effective whatever date is, you're going to receive this $15 an hour, $12.25 from your regular salary, $2.75 from the incentive, and it's not guaranteed. The incentive is not guaranteed. The incentive is there until the money runs out. Yep. Well, and that's true, and I wouldn't. I mean, until they're able to come in and dispatch as a third person or a second person, not still be in training, then 1225 may be it. I can see that, and if they know that as soon as they get through their training, that they'll get that increase, and that's something for them to shoot for and work for.
That's a good idea.
Well, there's 3 ABCO classes. They only have to have the 1 ABCO class prior to. There's the NIMS, which is the NIMS 2 and 4 and 700. They have to have the certifications in that. NCIC IDAX, that's the hardest one. In fact, I finally just passed that test 3 weeks ago. Had it years ago, passed it. It's the most boring class you ever want to take. And but it's a terrible class, and it's just a lot of memorization, and has to do with the state and national crime computer system. And but anyway, that's probably the hardest one. There's a Spillman section, because most people that come in don't run Spillman or computer-aided dispatches Spillman. You have to be able to negotiate, move around in there, and be able to do all up. It's not an easy program. It's a very overall inclusive program, and it ties all the emergency services together: police, fire, and EMS, which makes it nice. But once you learn it, it's a piece of cake. But until you get there, it's pain.
So this may be more of a deputy question. Sorry, Bobby. Are you going to seek an additional appropriation, or can you just do a transfer from that line item?
I have actually on your calendar for tonight an additional appropriation for
Okay.
$18,000.
Okay.
In anticipation that this might flow. If it doesn't flow, then it doesn't flow. And if it doesn't pass, then it doesn't pass. But rather than prolong this process, I went ahead and put in a request a few weeks ago and put myself on this meeting, and then I thought, well, we'll throw it out there and see what sticks.
Okay. Perfect. I think, yes.
Is it safe to say with the turnover and the 12 weeks of training, you're essentially losing money in training, and you don't have the security and the staff, the competency level that you need? So this would maybe stabilize that, and in the long run save you some money in training?
Could, yes, it could. And every time you, whether it's dispatch or law enforcement officers or jailers, every time you get somebody and you hire them, you put them through training. I mean, we used to hire, Ann and I used to hire 10 people for corrections, and if we had 2 or 3 at the end of a couple months, we were doing good. And but all the time and money you spend on them, training them and going through all that is just wasted money. So if you can get them trained and keep them, and that's just like a couple people. Got one guy that works down in Nicetown, and he works part-time to make the extra money. He's got 3 kids and a wife, and so he works up there and makes extra money. He's not a would-be, wannabe cop or fireman. He come up here and he sort of liked it, and he does enjoy it, but it's making him extra money that he needs to raise his family. But if he's looking out here at places that's making $15 and not half the stress and issues that he's got up here, not that he doesn't deal well with them, because he does, but he might leave me. In fact, I've heard that he's been looking at a couple places, gasoline attendant, paying more than what we're paying. So I hate to lose him, because he is a good dispatcher. I'm only limited to using him in the afternoons and evenings, but sometimes that's where I have a hole that I need to fill.
Well, I think that's a issue that we're having countywide, honestly, but I think it's very important in the department you're in right now, especially with the situations that they handle. So, any additional questions for Butch?
How about I make a motion to approve or to adopt the incentive payments
hear a second? Nope. And Nate beat you. All right, so we have a motion by Betsy, a second by Nate. All those in favor, or any further discussion?
I will, it's probably more appropriate if I recuse myself from voting because my son works over there and will directly benefit from this.
Since we have a quorum outside of that, I had to, that's easier, so we're good. All right, so, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, Butch, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take it to the council. You gonna be there this evening, or?
This evening,
All right.
any questions?
All righty, thank you. Okay, EMS.
Right?
I'm just going to talk for a second, and then I'll let Mandy and Lucas take over. In January, when Henry County EMS, when I came in and became the liaison / whatever you want to call me over Henry County EMS, it was bleeding and bleeding horribly. And the changes that were made for run pay and for structure and the things that have taken place, we weren't really sure that it was going to be around in March. It's now June. Not only are they sustaining, but they are profiting every month with what they've had to work with, which is only 3 ambulances and a short, limited staff. So we have proven that this service is viable. And I'll be honest with you, in January, my hope was that they would survive. My thought was that if we made it to June, we would be lucky. So to make it to June and to be in the financial position that they are right now, which Mandy will talk about, is amazing and attributed to, oh, excuse me. Hey, somebody else gets to tell me to do that. Is attributed to Mandy and Lucas and all the staff in Henry County EMS. So with that ado, I will turn it over to Mandy and Lucas.
Hello, I'm Mandy. This is Lucas. Yeah, I'm much shorter than that. Yeah. So we are here to talk about raising our EMT pay to 15, our driver pay to 12. We're currently paying $12.50 for an EMT right now, $10 for a driver. Am I? Okay. We're paying $3 to $5 below, not just the national average, but the state average, even surrounding county average. We've been having trouble with staffing, and I've tried everything. Lucas has tried everything to try it. You know, we do training. We train with the city now. We back up the city when we need to. But a lot of what we're struggling with is we can't be there to do BLS transports, mental health transports for the hospital. A lot of those happen in the evenings. A lot of those happen when we are on dedicated runs with patients that we take on a regular basis. So we don't have a free truck. Like she said, we should have free trucks, 7A to 11P. Like today, our service closed at 3 p.m. I only had 2 people on the schedule today. We should have probably on our roster 20 to 25 EMTs and EMRs. We just counted, we have 13. So if someone gets sick, if someone gets injured, there's so many things that affect that. We have someone now that's out all month of July. We have someone right now that is out for an injury. Vacations, we can't cover it. So if I can't jump on a truck, or Lucas can't jump on a truck, or we just have a driver and the EMT can't show up, that truck just doesn't go in service. To continue to make the profit that we're making and grow what we have, we need to add staff. It boils down to the pay. Surrounding counties, like Heartland is 16 to 18 an hour for a transport EMT. We looked up Seals, we looked up Eaton. All of them start at around 15. Some go up to 25, depending on what you're doing. A lot of EMTs can transfer over to be medical assistants. So we're losing them to medical offices. They're doing blood banks because we can transition. Then your pay significantly goes up. So I don't have a lot to offer them when it's $12.50. It's not just that it's $12.50. It's 28 hours a week. We realize we're a part-time job, but when you can go 15 miles down the road and make up to $5 more an hour, we can't compete with that. And if we can't compete, we're shutting down trucks consistently because of it. So to pay for that, we did a lot of research, looked into our balance and our budget. In January of this year, the balance that's set in the bank was $142,000. That goes up and down based off of various things. We had a lot of huge expenses come in from the previous year when we were still ALS, things that we had no idea were coming. We managed to pay those, we stayed afloat, and today our balance sits at $260,000. That is paying all our bills, paying our payroll, maintenance our trucks, all of it. We pay for all of this ourselves, and we are still consistently growing that balance $20,000 a month. That's our average. That's short staff with limited trucks. So staffing the trucks consistently, just for the 7A to 11P, that's not even talking about us moving them back into 7 days and then overnights, which is the long-term goal. It's going to pay for itself because the runs, I'm consistently turning down probably 2 to 3.
We did 4 to 6 yesterday that we just didn't.
Just in a row.
I mean, that's very close to $1,000 right there that we just turned down because we just don't have.
We just didn't have people. That's a not only that, it's hurting the hospital, the city EMS. We have other people that do very much what we do. The issue is they're not consistent. Well, right now we're not being consistent either, not when it comes to the hospital, and that is where we're needed. We are so greatly needed there. Mental health transports, usually, I don't know if you're familiar with, that there's not a 20-minute drive to get to a mental health facility. Juveniles especially. We're going to go all the way to Jeffersonville. We're going to go into Ohio, almost all the way to Michigan. City can't do those. They can't do those. So, yeah. Exactly.
That's what we're here for.
Yep.
Whenever you do that, hold up and answer.
Right. Or, you got STEMIs and non-STEMIs waiting in the ER for transport to the, ALS Heart Center, and suddenly they are waiting 2 or 3 hours for a truck to return. Where, because they took a BLS transport to Mishawaka. That's a common one that we go to. Terre Haute, we definitely take psych patients to Terre Haute. That's a 3-hour drive. Jeffersonville is a 6.5-hour round trip drive. I consistently have to turn those down, and it's hard on everyone, and it's because I can't stay staffed. And the only thing that I can go back to, if I look at everything, is we just are not competitive when it comes to the wage. We have the money. We survived. We more than survived. I think that there was it was valid. I get why it probably looked like we weren't going to. ALS makes a lot of money, that's for sure. But what I've learned by going through transmittals for a year is it also costs a lot of money to run an ALS service. So when we lost all of those expenses, suddenly BLS made sense. I for sure make a BLS service work. Not only, we can grow. We're already looking at when can we purchase our next our next ambulance? How do we trade these off? I wouldn't have thought in January myself that was going to be possible. But the figures just continue to climb. So I have to get staffed. We have to get staffed. This is the only thing left that we have not tried. So to try and make employees happy, we've grown the program immensely with the training and the certs and working with HR, and there is such a process now that never existed before, and we built that, and it's worked. It's definitely worked, and it shows. It shows in the figures. For example, last week our deposits were right at $9,200. The week before that, $8,600. The week before that, I want to say it's like $7,400. That in itself, 1 week of that profit just from this month would pay for, or just from last week, would pay for the month that it would cost to raise us to $15 an hour. We're looking at fully staffed, $3,200 a month to raise us to $15. That is 8 EMTs on our trucks, fully staffed for all our shifts, ready to go. We definitely, I think, have the figures here that back up that we can afford that. We fluctuate. Our expenses, it depends. How much oxygen did we use that month? What do we need, for that? What was our fuel cost? How far away did we go? Those change, they fluctuate. But probably, ambulance billing based on the number of runs. I can't give you exact figures, but I can tell you genuinely $5,000 or less a month, which is way lower than when we were ALS, which is how we're turning a profit now, which I wouldn't have thought was possible. We have good running, reliable trucks, everything's serviced, everything's under a maintenance contract. All those things are in place. This is the last thing. This is the last thing where we need to come up to, and I really feel like that we can support it. Any questions?
I will just say a couple things. I was involved with Commissioner Plummer when we were looking at all the finances back in January, and I have to commend you guys. You guys, I felt the same way she did. I was like, boy, these numbers, you know, I want to see them go, and I know it's going to be a lot of work, but the numbers just did not look good on paper. So you should all give yourselves a big pat on the back because it's phenomenal, the work you've done. To go from what looked like inevitable doom to growing your balance over $100,000 in 6 months is phenomenal. And you're talking you only need $3,200 to give the raise. I mean, that's just a small portion of this increase you've received. So you should be commended for the work you've done, and you know, it's phenomenal that you've been able to do it. So I can tell you, as a council member and a citizen, I appreciate the work you've done. I also understand you're in a very similar situation to Butch Baker and 911. You're a critical department, a critical service. I know the hospital was in one of our meetings just a few short weeks ago talking about the need for transport and especially dealing with mental health issues, and you know, they had a dire need there. So and when $12.50 an hour, you can go to McDonald's and make $12 an hour with no training and walk in the door and start a new job. I completely understand your request. I guess the only thing I want to clarify is that and I know you've said this, but you're also finding the funds within your own department. You're not affecting the general fund in any way, shape, or form. So I think it's a phenomenal idea, but I'll leave the rest of my questions to my colleagues up here. I also will mention, since you didn't, everyone should have received a couple letters.
Yes,
One
from our
from the
medical
director of EMS, one from the medical director of the hospital in support of this and the organization. So if you didn't, I can get everybody else copies, but I believe Ann emailed them out to everyone. So just in case you hadn't received those. Any further questions or actions to be taken?
I just have a couple comments. I was involved certainly in the last part and the early part of this year, and it looked very bad, so I want to compliment you also. I see you guys up here all the time. I haven't been that active in it, but you have pulled off something that was very difficult to do because it looked as if you were going out of business and the county was going to put you out of business. But it is a business. It's an important business, and you've done very well at it. So I am all for giving you whatever you want, realizing that you know it is a business.
Careful. Careful.
Well, if it doesn't work out or you pay too much, you're going to go out of business.
We very closely
So as long as you run it as a business and you continue to prosper, that's great news.
Yes.
So certainly I would not stand in your way. I want you to get what you need. And if you think and obviously the way wages have gone up just to get somebody to come in the door, it's very, very, if you can make fog on a mirror, you can make $15 an hour today. So I'm all for, increasing the pay. and just continue to run it as a business. And
Right.
if you're doing well, you can pay better.
Yes.
That's business.
Yes, sir. Right.
I will say that when we came here before to change from Monday to $12.50 an hour, it was hoped that, it stated that we would hope to raise rates to $15 an hour. Never in my wildest dreams would I think in 6 months we would be asking for 15. I was thinking if it survived, it would be more like 2 years. And the last thing I'm gonna say is, I had nothing to do with saving this service. They and the staff had everything to do with saving this service. It had nothing to do with me and or anybody else. It was them. So I commend them.
Thanks.
Hang on. It's Melissa.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to be polite. I was just going to say, it looks like in your restructure, what you actually discovered is you have a demand, and just being the BLS and not trying to compete with the other services, you actually found a niche that essentially, if we don't help you out and support you, then we are actually holding you back from growing your business, so to speak.
Yeah, in the past, it's always been kind of a competition. I know whenever I first hired in Middleborough, it was always city versus county EMS agency. It was always a competition to who can get where first. It's not like that. It doesn't need to be like that. I'm not, me and Randy have talked, we're not fooling ourselves. This isn't gonna be somebody's lifelong job at Henry County EMS. We don't offer a full-time position. But it's gonna be a good stepping stone for young EMT students that come out of the high school class here in town. We can support local kids that are wanting to make a career here. We can bring them in, we can train them right, we can show them how it's gonna work.
We just hired 5 students.
Doing that, and know that we can be a stepping stone to the city of you guys.
Essentially, it's created a win-win situation, and those are always the optimal scenarios.
We did get very, we got into the community. We got with the high school instructor, we went down there and talked to them about it and recruited why BLS is important. Usually you can't go to a 911 service till you're 21 anyway, so these kids are in that 3-year gap. We are perfect for them. They hone their skills. They learn to do OPQ RST. They learn to take a blood pressure on a moving truck. All of these things, good patient care, good moving skills, cot lifting, those are all really important. And when you're in a 911 setting, and we both do that as well, you don't have time to teach someone that. We do. And that's exactly what we went, and we're actually going to talk to a couple more classes with another instructor that we found. We are a perfect fit for them. They help us, we help them. And we're perfect for that. Like, there's not a better scenario. We have the time. We may have a 6-hour transport. You've got to figure out a way to fill 6 hours with a patient. It can be a little nerve-wracking for some of these young people, but that's how they learn. They learn. A lot of it, they may sleep an hour and then they wake up, where are we at, what's happening, especially psych patients. Learning to calm the situation down, talk to them, facilitate them being more comfortable, change positions. It's a great skill to have. It is a great skill to have, and we can provide it.
No, I heard you are taking good care of the vehicles and the maintenance and all that stuff. Just keep in mind, you've destroyed one building. And I would want you to be careful in the new building until we find you someplace else.
Just like that building though, those ambulances have been ran ragged, so they're all of them almost all have over 200,000 miles on each of them.
It's looking really bad. It's fallen down. It's a historic building, and you did nothing to save it.
See me up on the roof next week with some
On that positive note, does anyone have any other questions or comments for the?
Yeah.
We wrote it down on paper and made it look real pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm the numbers guy on the council. Everybody knows that. So I knew it took a lot more than numbers to get to these numbers. I promise you that. That's why I say you guys have done a phenomenal job because the numbers
They
would
don't lie.
never have translated to
Yeah.
this when I looked at the raw numbers. So it was a heck of a lot more than numbers that got you here.
yeah.
So you should be commended on what you've done.
you.
So any other questions, comments, motions?
Make a motion that we approve the pay rates as proposed.
Okay, we have a motion by Clay, seconded by Betsy. All those in favor, or any additional comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Are you guys going to be at the meeting or?
I will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, be safe and thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Planning Commission, and it says Ann Bankson.
Oh, did it change to Ann Bankson?
So it's Commissioner Plummer.
We're gonna tag team because, well, I don't yell at Ann because when I walk into her office and ask her to do something, she jumps up and does it. So apparently, it was kind of a little bit of a surprise that I could potentially be talking about the zoning administrator position. Granted, I'm on the liaison on the planning commission. Everyone knows that the zoning admin position is open and has been open for roughly 6 weeks. We did have 3 applicants. None of them had zoning admin experience, so at the last planning commission meeting, it was voted on to start the process over to try to find someone with actual zoning admin experience. And then part of the conversation was maybe salary was an issue to get quality. Again, it's the same argument. Butch, Lucas, Mandy, and I could all just stand up here at once and say it's a pay problem and let you guys just make one vote. But I believe the salary that is paid right now is just under $42,000. I don't remember the exact numbers, $41,000 some odd dollars. Looking at the information from Wagner and Schilling today, and I don't have those in front of me. I think Chad, okay, you have them. I think the low end for 2022 is roughly around $44,000, between $44,000 and $45,000, and then the market value at that point is roughly $50,000 or $49,000, I believe, if I remember the numbers correctly. So it was discussed at the Planning Commission to come to the job classification to see if we could increase that salary for potentially getting a better quality of candidates to apply for the position. And that's all I have to say.
Ann, do you have the exact numbers with you?
It's 43271, and
What's the starting salary? Is that
that's what it is.
43?
Oh, it is 43?
It's 42671.
Oh, 42, excuse me.
Yeah. And I'll verify that here. I've been trying, the hurrier I go, the behinder I get. But I don't know, other than looking at the statistics, but I have not been given permission to do that, so I'm just kind of taking the bull by the horns, and I will get on the AIC website. but it is about $5,000 is the medium increase that they're looking for to make that more accessible, to draw in the skill sets that's needed for this position. I have posted it through AIC. I've done it, well, it's not put in the paper yet because I don't have permission. I've got everything ready to go in Indeed. The last pool that they had, nobody met the requirements. The only closest thing that they had was a political affiliation. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on that, because there are guidelines with the IC code with the job description that that cannot have any bearing on the position. So I want to make sure that we don't just hire anybody willy-nilly. So that's why we're kind of bringing all this to light with the rate. It's going to be kind of hard to find somebody with the zoning and a planning background with a 1-year experience, and that is the IC code. So we did update the job description, so that's why, just to make it more marketable and more palatable for people to look at and say, hey, this looks like a job for me. I think that was just the gist of what was being stated in the Planning Commission meeting.
I have a quick question. Not that we're not looking for a very qualified person if we can't find one. But when Darren Jacobs took the job, did he have any experience in that job?
Well, it's my understanding that he had worked in the office with Rachel White. Also, I don't know for you, and Clay, you may remember the number of years.
It was a year or two.
I was going to say, it may have been a year or so.
A year or two, and then she went on
worked in that
maternity leave.
office.
She was off for maternity leave, and he worked then, and then transitioned, I think.
But to be fair to your question, that was his apprenticeship or stepping stone
Had something.
to get
They-
hired. Yeah,
It's not like we get
Yeah.
applicants that have no experience at all.
yeah, right.
Seems like he also had access to Rachel to pick her brain anytime it got stuck, if I
Yes.
remember right.
Yeah, that's how they started. She was willing to help him and answer any questions. Yeah.
So,
So I guess, I mean, I have not been given permission. I mean, I'm one person on the planning commission, and this is a planning commission's role, according to state statute, is the planning commission's role to hire this position. So I guess I'm just being a representative of the planning commission to come, and I don't know that I can ask you, or if I have permission, and none of that was voted on, to ask you to increase the raise, but maybe to consider it. You were at that meeting, nothing was voted on, so it's not like everybody said, okay, Bobby, yeah, you please go to the planning, or the zoning, or the, whatever you guys are called. Job classification. Well, I can't imagine that they would object, but I'm just wanting to make sure that everybody knows I'm not doing this as Commissioner Bobby Plummer. I'm not doing this as I'm just stepping up and taking the bulls by the horn. It was asked, what do we do to get a pay raise, go to job classification, and the next thing I know, it's on job classification. So
basically,
I'm very
this
much
is-
about staying in my lane.
Yeah.
And
So
not,
you're just a supporter.
yeah.
So we're just at an informational stage at this point, and you anticipate coming back in the future, which we don't meet again for another month,
Well,
and that's
now,
the
what
downfall.
you guys do with that information,
Well, I will ask the question, because unlike the other two departments that have come before us, this would have a direct impact on the general fund.
correct.
Are there any funds in fee services or anything that can be used to supplement this
And
salary?
Those are the questions that I don't have.
Because I know you do take in fees, and you do have funds in that department.
Correct.
So like Butch or like the EMS and 911, they're using some of their fee service funds to accommodate this. Is that possible in this, would be my question back to the commission.
Well, and then those are the answers that I don't have. I guess we'll have to talk with the auditor and see what they have, and of course, I can't spend their money anyway. To say, hey, we're just in a weird spot right now, because I can't tell them what funds to take things out of, even as a single member of a planning commission. I'm one of 9 people on that board, so I can't, and as a commissioner, I can't say, well, if you want to raise, you need to take it out of this. That's their funds, not mine. So I'm trying to walk this fine line of, I want to be helpful and get this thing moving. I guess we could call a special planning commission meeting if we needed to in the next week or so, and maybe get some of these decisions made as a commission.
When do you guys meet next?
The third Thursday of July.
If we don't take action tonight,
You could take it in
we couldn't
July.
take action again until our July meeting, I'm sorry, our
Correct.
July meeting.
Correct. And the advertisements for the job, I think, are till July 9th. Is that correct?
I did put it
Yeah,
for
till
the
July
night.
9th. So,
So does that mean this delays, you won't be able to hire anyone at
well, I
a,
guess we could hire
Well, you're
somebody
gonna be back at the-
rate and tell the, I mean, and again, I'm one person, and then say, there's a potential for a pay increase.
Yeah, that, my fear would be it'd be harder to
I know.
entice anyone to
Correct.
apply if, hey, we may,
Right, oh, exactly. Oh, no,
you know,
I get
there
you.
may be a
I get
chance,
you. I
but
mean,
I may win the lottery tomorrow
you know,
too, but.
I can throw a lot of suggestions around, but I can't make a decision on anything. And as a control freak, that's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
Because
on,
what I want to say is we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and the.
yeah, and see, that's the hard part sitting on this side of the
Uh-huh.
table too, because there's so many moving parts. It's hard for us to make a recommendation of
Exactly.
X, Y, because we don't know what
No,
X, Y,
we
and
don't
Z
know.
is.
Yeah.
So,
What I would like to do is say, hey, let's put a hold, I mean, we need desperately a zoning administrator.
Right.
Absolutely need a zoning administrator. But we also want to do the process correctly so we get the right person, not just do it quickly to fill the position. And so we're in that realm. And then now, do we stop the process right now until we can know what the exact salary is going to be, if it's going to be increased? Are we wasting our time? I mean, right now, we're just doing the free stuff because Dan hasn't gotten approval to do anything with money. So right now, it's just the free stuff. But, do we stop that until it's time to, so those are questions that the Planning Commission has to answer as a group.
well,
It is. No. Mm-mm. Mm-hmm. Correct. Right. Mm-hmm. And we can get that from Debbie, but again, I guess I'm just going to say a temporary interim spokesperson to try to get this stuff moving.
yeah, I mean, if
You know, 'cause
I'm
we're-
not mistaken, there's some pretty healthy funds in your fees funding, because we discussed it last year at the budget sessions. But I want to tread very lightly as a council member, because every department head in the entire building can come and stand at your desk and say their employees paid 20% under and they want to ask for a raise today.
Oh, exactly.
And so that's why we had a meeting on Tuesday as a work session from the council finance committee to discuss how we approach this as a global problem,
Correct.
because I would like to say that position is the unicorn, but unfortunately it's the rule, not the exception.
You're right.
And because, majority of the county is 20, give or take 20% under, or a huge number, or at least 10 to 15, some as much as 30% under
Correct.
market value.
Oh, yeah.
And so, in the middle of a year, off budget, I think we could have every department head in all these buildings standing at the podium
Oh,
and
I
asking for the same
absolutely
thing.
agree.
Because we do, I mean, we have issues in all these departments, but
Right. I mean, would I love it that tomorrow Ann's going to get something emailed to her that says, hey, I'm a zoning admin with 5 years' experience, and I would love to work in Newcastle for $42,000 plus benefits. Yeah, that would be great. Realistically, is that
So-
probably going to happen? No.
I don't know, I'll put my suggestion in as a motion, since we're advisory. But I would make a motion that we give permission, authority, however you want to word it, to Bobby, being a member of the Planning Commission, to have the planning commission examine their fees, examine where they're at, so that they can find room or find a place. Again, it's like we talked about Tuesday with the health department. She found ways to raise fees, and that really bolstered her department. So if there is a way to raise fees, if there is a way to compensate for that extra few $1,000s a year, so my motion is to go ahead and from this committee advise her to take that as quickly as possible, however that works out, and then launch that from there so that we can actually get on this to make an official motion ASAP. That's my motion.
I agree.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I guess I will make a little more comment in that, like I said, it's just, if we can find a way to do it outside of the general fund, then I think it's a good idea because, but inside the general fund in the middle of a year, a month before budget session, I think the council would be less apt to try to look at it in that aspect. But I definitely see the need, but I see it across the entire building. I mean, there are positions in the building that we discussed on Tuesday that are going to be impossible to fill. I mean, we have a chief deputy position in an integral department coming up who's got almost 4 decades of experience. That's going to be impossible to fill for the amount of money that, and get the experience level even close to what's leaving. So,
I agree.
and unfortunately, the time frame's not going to work out well for you. So and that's the decision that you
Again,
guys
the
will
planning
have to make
commission
on
is
your
gonna have to-
own
yeah.
as to whether or not you want to do that, and delay or wait. But I agree, it's not ideal because I don't think incentivizing, trying to incentivize someone with pay, we may be able to do something. It's not, I don't think you're going to get an influx of applicants on that kind of
Oh,
incentive.
no, I agree.
I do appreciate your position, and
Yeah.
but, I want to help some way, but
Yeah, and it makes it more difficult that a body of 9 has to agree to something. I can stand up here and tell you got it, but I'm one person of 9. So then a body of 9 has to, we have to just work in that dynamic. And none of that was decided or discussed. So it's kind of a weird situation.
But I think as we go and try to tackle these issues throughout the county, what we're going to end up finding out is it's going to be department by department. Can you work it out in your department? That's what we need right now, because there's no umbrella answer. So with each decision that we've listened to tonight, including this one, it's creative thinking, right? It's everybody realizing there's an issue, and you're going to the drawing board and saying, how can we solve it? And if we can solve it, great. So, yeah.
any additional comments or questions?
Before we vote, I want to make sure I understand Clay's motion. As I understand it, since we don't know all the facts right here, Bobby's going to go back, talk to the head of the planning board, look at the budget, and if they can find a way to increase the salary within their budget, the money they have, then we're giving them tentatively the authority to go ahead and raise the job offer as long as they can pay for
We'll
it.
have to come back here.
Yeah.
They still need to come
Yeah.
back.
We still have to
We're
come back.
Basically, Clay's asking them to go back and gather the data and then bring it back to it at our
It's
next
asking
meeting.
me as a planning commission member, knowing that I can't make a decision singularly,
Yeah.
to
Just-
ask me to go back.
Basically, it's
and-
more of a formal request than it is an actual motion. I'm not sure we need a motion. It's just more of a formal request
Okay,
from
so,
this body
yeah,
to
you
go
can-
back and
they can do
gather
that anyway.
information, especially on can you find it in some way in your fee structures or
Yeah.
some other
I just put it in the
avenue
form of a
outside the
motion
general
so we
fund.
can show official consensus.
I don't know that we need to take a vote per se, but we do have, I think that's why we want to make sure everyone has a chance to comment and what their thoughts are, so you can go back and speak on our
'cause
behalf.
We will have to have a meeting,
Yes.
so.
And then in the meeting, speak on our behalf, as this is the information we'll need to make an informed decision and bring it back to us in a month.
Okay. Will do.
Any other?
So this doesn't have to come before the council tonight, then?
No,
This piece, Henry County EMS will, but this piece will not.
no, it will
Okay.
not. It will not. I won't even, honestly, it won't get mentioned because it's
Okay.
still not left
Not-
our,
not
we
that.
haven't made any decisions.
Okay.
So we don't really need to bring it forth
Just checking
before
so
the
Ann doesn't
council.
have to stay if she doesn't want to.
No, you do not. Unless you want to stay for the fun.
All right, thank you, guys.
That's the old business, and I will send an email out once I get the information, because I do not have that yet. I just wanted to be clear that this was on the last meeting, and Wagner, Irwin, Shealy did send me the email. I sent you the information, but as far as costs, they could not get that to me, so I respectfully ask that you scratch that, and then we'll bring that up the next meeting.
Okay. Is there any additional new business from any of the multitude in the crowd? Or the committee itself?
Will we be having a meeting in July?
That is proposed, as long as we will tentatively have it. If there's no one on the schedule, which the planning commission seems as though they will be, then yes, we should have one, but we always send out notification the week prior to see if any departments are interested in appearing before us, and then notify the committee accordingly. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.